these movies will most likely swallow your soul. So make sure you give your soul to us, not to these Deadites, because the Deadites will probably do bad things with it, whereas I will just put it in my Mountain Dew.
What are you, Shang Tsung? I'll tell you the first time I saw Evil Dead. This is actually a true story. I was 10 years old, visiting Pakistan. They're in Pakistan. They had video stores with a lot of bootleg videos, and we got Evil Dead. And blew my mind as a kid. Had no idea what was going on. No idea why my parents would let me watch this movie. By that time, I was pretty deep in the horror genre, though. So I had seen Freddy's Dead and Jason Goes to Hell. And
can you name any good horror movies you've seen by then?
Oh, Leprechaun.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Anyway, so yeah, I saw it in Pakistan. Blown away. Got to be honest, revisiting it now, I felt like, interesting enough, though, I've seen Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness many, many times. But this first one, I don't know. As a kid, I didn't really connect to it and never really went back and revisited it. And now watching it felt fresh, like I was watching it for the first time. Do you remember any memories of seeing Evil Dead or even hearing about Evil Dead for the first time?
Okay, so my first time watching Evil Dead, it was 2013 in the theater.
What the hell, man?
I didn't watch this particular 1981 until today.
Wow.
But no, my very first interaction with the Evil Dead franchise, be honest with you, I walked in on my dad watching Army of Darkness.
Okay.
And the first thing I see is the evil skeletal commander kissing up on the main heroine who becomes a Deadite.
I think your experience is probably similar to many, where Army of Darkness probably was their first exposure. I can say after seeing Evil Dead in Pakistan, probably for the next 10 years, my relationship with the franchise was strictly seeing Army of Darkness on TV.
Yep.
They used to play it on television all the time, so much so that I was so used to the television version. When I saw the actual version, I was like, wait, this is not the same as the television version. There were scenes cut out, scenes in different places.
Honestly, I don't even think I've seen the non-TV version.
Also, shout out to my childhood friends, Larry Johnson, Kevin Proctor. We were having a sleepover, and we went to the video store to run a movie for the sleepover. And these are all like, basically think about, 12, 13-year-old kids. Fresh off Pakistan was like, hey, we should watch this Evil Dead movie. And they haven't forgiven me since. They felt traumatized by certain scenes in this movie. So they watched the first 20 minutes, turned it off, and we played video games for the ress of the night. And that was the end of it.
I never rented it. The first time I watched Evil Dead 2 was with you, but I still remember seeing the Evil Dead 2 cover was usually just that smiling skeleton giving you the side eye.
Yeah.
And it was I think that's always cut me out. I was like, this looks too funny. I want something scary.
Well, the Evil Dead franchise, as we'll get into it, definitely is going to take you on a roller coaster of scares, comedy, action, back to scares, mix of in between, both done poorly. Well, this movie has there's, I guess, a little bit of something for everybody in this franchise. The first one, Evil Dead, 1981. I'll give some quick background on this movie because I read Bruce Campbell's book once upon a time. Sam Raimi, the director of this movie, grew up with Bruce Campbell, along with some other friends. And from middle school to high school, they're making their little short films on Super 8 cameras. Just really low budget stuff, but that was what they did as a friendship group, was make short films. And so they had that background together. Bruce Campbell also did high school theater classes, went to college for one semester, and basically signed up for all acting classes. So he wanted to be an actor. And post-college, Sam Raimi was driving a cab. Bruce Campbell was doing odd jobs here and there. And they finally, on a phone call with their friends, were like, hey, can we actually make a real movie? Plan it out. They were like, okay, how do we do this? First, they tried to figure out what kind of movie to make. So they go to the drive-in movie theaters, and they're watching movies. And there's some murder mystery they see, and they realize that the audience was reacting mostly to jump scares. That's when the drive-in theater audience is giving the biggest reactions, is jump scares and stuff like that, like horror stuff, pretty much. So then from there, they got to raise money. They open a lemonade stand, and slowly but surely, no, that's not it. No, they called upon local investors, the town dentist, the town doctor, local businessmen who had, I guess, extra money to throw into something cool and something, that really had no promise of a good return, because they were just young kids telling them, hey, we're making this movie. You can be a part of this. We need some money. So local investors, and then high interest loans from the local bank. So yeah, this movie didn't work out. They were about to be in a crazy amount of debt because this was all. There's no studio giving them money, nothing. It's just literally them going to different dentist offices, doctors' offices, banks, and putting together a smorgasbord of loans, high interest loans, with a promise to pay them back. And at a certain point, even Bruce Campbell had to go to his dad, who owned a property, and take out a second mortgage on the property to help finish the film.
Damn.
So they were going all in on this movie, pretty much.
You gotta admire the dedication.
And that included going to a cabin in Tennessee to film.
Please tell me it wasn't summer.
Summertime, about 3 months. The casting, they casted for Cheryl, Ash's sister. It was one of their friends from high school who had acted in a couple films with them back in high school. And then they actually had a legit casting process. They sent out advertisements to come audition, and that's how we got our actors who, after this movie, mostly all never acted again.
Damn.
Now, was that because they didn't have interest in acting, or because they were so miserable making this damn movie that they just were turned off to the idea of ever acting again?
Why not both?
I think both, maybe.
Because I'm sorry, if you have an interest in acting, one bad experience is not going to stop you. 2 bad experiences, probably, but not 1.
Well, if you're taken to a cabin in Tennessee, and you're going to be put through what these actors are going to be put through, and mind you, they were being paid $100 a week, so this is not a money thing, not a huge payday here.
Well, they were also unknowns. They were trying to get into the world themselves.
Yep. And Sam Raimi, knowing that, is going to proceed to torture them throughout this movie.
So, I know this one came out in 1981, and the movie I'm about to kind of compare it to came out much later. You know, that sounds exactly like Blair Witch Project, right?
Oh, yeah. That's true.
Except here's the difference. At least one of them that I know of is still acting.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right.
So, again, one bad experience that will not cut you out of acting if you actually have a drive to be an actor or actress.
Well, Bruce Campbell went on to have a long acting career, so he's the only one from this movie who would go on to do a lot. So
Sam Raimi did a lot, just directing stuff, not really acting.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Raimi's one of the biggest directors.
Sam didn't get his brother in on it.
I think he did.
Where was Ted in this whole movie?
I think Ted was a part of doing the effects a little bit. He was behind the scenes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a couple core guys they have that they would use to get in Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, but more behind the scenes. The movie, they sold it slowly they screened it for different people, try to get the rights sold, basically. And what helped them a lot was actually Stephen King randomly saw a cut of it and said it was one of the most scariest movies in years. And they used that quote from Stephen King with his permission to go shop it around in different studios. And Stephen King, being the biggest horror author at the time, him actually saying it was a scary movie held a lot of weight.
Oh, he's still one of the biggest horror authors of this time.
Yeah, if he endorses anything, then that gives it clout and credibility.
Which is funny, because you know what the scariest movies he's ever watched in his opinions are? Disney movies.
Artists went to camp.
Disney movies.
Oh, wow.
It's mainly, and he says his most intimidating villain he's ever seen in any movie, Cruella de Vil.
How many kids were scarred from Scar from Lion King? There's some cruel villains in the Disney series.
Yeah,
Disney
but
movies.
he's at...
Jafar?
I once read that he's actually said he does not let his kids watch Disney at that time frame because they were so young. He didn't want kids' movies to scare them. And then he goes on and says that, yes, he's let them watch horror movies.
Oh, I knew it.
But depending on the horror movie, like ones that he knows could scare him, but is not really based on any real events.
Right. So all that to say, basically, Evil Dead fans out there, you should send a thank you letter to Stephen King, because the franchise may have not be what it is today unless he had given them that endorsement that allowed them to go around selling the movie. Within 2 years, they were able to pay back all those investors, all the dentists, doctors, they all got their money back. They was able to pay off that second mortgage from his dad's house that he took on. So everybody got their money back, and $2 million in the box office, but then you got to think about who knows what it made in home videos. Apparently, in the 80s, it was one of the biggest home videos, rental-wise. We know there's Evil Dead video games. We know the Evil Dead TV show. We know how much money it's made. Old friends getting together and working together to make an impossible dream come true, launching both their careers.
How about we talk about these establishing shots? I wonder what's moving through those trees and lake and shit.
So the lake is literally Sam Raimi in a boat and Bruce Campbell pushing the boat. A lot of the shots creatively are done with just the camera tied to something and then the human being pushing the thing. It would be a 2x4 piece of wood, the boat, the car, a lot of work going into this. So
now I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
And it doesn't need answering, but at the same time, you're going to answer it. When you're driving and your whole tire falls through the bridge,
yep.
How the hell are you getting that tire out to be able to move the car? Because I don't think that car would be able to move with a full tire through that bridge like that.
I don't have the answers, and neither the movie, because they don't show. They just show the car just keep driving pretty much. They're like, we're not going to solve this problem in the moment.
Even though they showed that the tire was literally hitting air, not moving, while the other one, obviously still on the bridge, couldn't make it move by itself. Like, how?
Okay, even before that, let's rewind 3 seconds. Before they get on the bridge, there's a sign that says, like a warning sign saying, go on this bridge at your own peril because the bridge is damaged.
Well, it says 3 tons only, which any regular car could go through that.
When they first get on the bridge, it's already shaking pretty much.
Yeah.
They actually say, like, this bridge is probably about to give out.
Which it starts doing.
When you go into that middle part, nobody's really panicking in the car, but I'm like, huh? I'm like, I would be like, are we in trouble? But they just happily keep driving. And then I'm like, how are we going to drive back off the bridge? Because
there's now a giant ass hole in the bridge. Here's the real question I got. So we're looking at this bridge in daylight and it's completely wooden. I don't really see steel. I don't see concrete. I don't see cinder blocks. And just so we don't have to talk about a useless scene later, how the fuck does the wooden bridge turn into steel and cinder blocks the next time you see it?
Well, this is one of those movies where I'm going to pass on a lot of things because I realize that the focus in this movie is going to be strictly on the horror and the visuals. I don't even know if they had a script. Maybe they had a script, but I think they might be winging it here, just whatever's going to be fun in the moment because, yeah, plot holes are going to be thrown all over the place, but I don't know if you really care about that in the Evil Dead movies as much. So,
and also another question is, I've always thought with the Evil Dead movies, you have to physically read the book or say the incantation for the demon to be able to possess somebody. How is Cheryl's hand already getting possessed to draw the picture of the book before we even see this book?
I don't know. So, okay, this being the first movie, we can't use rules from the later movies to establish it because this is the first movie. So there are no rules yet. This is its own self-contained thing. That said, okay, I know the book is the thing in the franchise, but can you make a case that this cabin, these woods are just haunted on their own anyways? Because it feels like the power is almost like from the moment they're there, stuff is happening to get them to play the tapes. Like some force is there, it's kind of like the Nightmare series where Freddy needs something to happen, so he's already making you dream about him to bring you to kind of go down the road of bringing him back to life, like in part 4.
So what, this is just a weak demon from the previous person saying the incantation, losing its energy, and then because this group of people came up, it's like...
Think about they're in the cabin and the damn cellar door just pops open. Something is being like, gotta get them in the basement, gotta get them to get the tapes, something is like kind of leading them towards, bringing the evil back to life. So I don't know if there's already a presence there when they get there.
Which I don't know about you, but I would have left all that shit down there.
Well, I mean, we're going to see in all the sequels, whoever made these damn tapes was extremely irresponsible. These tapes have a lot of power for you to be like, hey, let me just doom the rest of everybody who comes to this cabin.
Here's the real question. If you're making this tape, the tape sounds more like a warning of what this book is. This book is able to summon demons.
Yep.
The demons are able to possess you. The only way to kill them is by dismemberment. And then you proceed to read an incantation from the book.
Well, you would think afterwards, I mean, hopefully you had time, but you would, destroy the parts of the tapes that have in the reading of the incantation and keep the parts that just give the advice of how to stop things afterwards. Keep that dismemberment thing there, but maybe let go of the whole Chateau Canta. Well,
here's another question. Scotty said he wanted to listen to the whole thing. If that's the case, why didn't he just push play again after Cheryl stops it versus fast forwarding it to the incantation?
I wanted to ask you because I want to try to put a percentage on who are we blaming mostly for what happens here, because Ash sort of brings the stuff up from the basement. Ash originally hooks up the tape recorder and plays it, but then Scotty's just like, yeah, let's keep playing it, even though Cheryl's like, I don't want to hear this shit, basically.
Well, yeah, because Cheryl's already experienced something.
She's already kind of like, on the edge pretty much.
And I definitely blame Scotty because, sure, he doesn't know that there's going to be an incantation on there. But at the same time, usually, at least when I went camping, if one person in the group is uncomfortable with it, probably best not to do it.
Yeah, what's funny too is like the movie makes sense because it takes place in 1981. This is before all the Friday the 13th movies. This is before all the horror movies of the 80s. Right now, if that happened right now, you find the tape recorder, you're just like, nah, I've seen too many horror movies. I'm not messing with this.
Honestly, that cellar door popped open by itself. It's like, let's go.
I'm getting out of here. But this is before like cabins were horror settings in movies. So it's like you kind of had nothing to go by. I blame mostly the recorder of the tapes person, the guy. I blame him mostly, but Scotty has some liability for sure.
Well, so does Ash, because again, why would you want to hook this up and then you start hearing it play? You start hearing what the description and everything is. It's like, why don't you stop it? And then when your buddy comes up and starts it, why didn't you just stop it immediately?
He does lecture him afterwards, but it's kind of too little too late.
Yeah, exactly.
Damn it, Scotty! It's like, well, I mean, the cat's out of the bag.
At that point, who do you stick up for more? Your sister, who doesn't want to listen to the demons? Or your friend, who's a jackass to your sister?
It's very interesting that if you watch this first part of the movie, I don't know if you took this the same way, but it really felt like Cheryl was the main character.
It's because they followed her more.
They followed her more, and then she's also the one who's catching on to things being not quite right there. Ash is almost a side nothing character at the beginning. It's kind of like watching it. You would not guess that this would be Ash's movie, or he'd go on to be like the main guy of the franchise. Even like Scotty kind of does more in the first part of the movie in terms of taking control and doing things, but.
Yeah, I got another question for you.
Sure.
You're in the woods and you're in the cabin alone. You just had that creepy ass incantation playing.
Yep.
You're on edge.
Yep.
You're in the middle of the woods at night.
Yep.
I understand that, Friday 13th part 1 is probably not fresh in a lot of people's heads yet.
Well, Friday 13th is 1980. This is 1981. So this would be right in the time period where you might be like, there could be
psychopaths in the woods, probably, because you're also in an area you technically don't know.
But maybe the characters in the movie haven't seen Friday 13th yet.
Well, let's go on with the fact that this woman decides to go out into the creepy ass woods by herself, believing somebody's out there.
When the evil is looking through the window at her, and she leaves the room, I'm like, oh, good, she left the room. To see her then walk outside, I was like, whoa. This is kind of you really went out to investigate the strange noise.
And then she believes someone, it's a normal person out there, because she's saying, hey, Ethel, I know you're out there. It's like, if you know someone's out there, wouldn't it be better to, I don't know, go tell your brother?
Yeah. I mean, tell somebody. Just walking outside and in the middle of the night seems a little bit off. But, I mean, there was no way to predict what was about to happen, because this is probably the scene that traumatized my cohort, my young friends back in the day.
Yeah, the scene wasn't all that traumatizing. They did it better in the remake, but that's because they had a bigger budget and actually the effects to do it. However, I will say it did look painful watching that branch whack that woman in the spot.
Well, this gets back to these actors and actresses never acting again. There's certain scenes where you're just thinking about, okay, this is all practical effects. There's no pretending here.
And honestly,
that looks brutal.
Her face made me think she was actually hit. Ouch.
Yeah, this was a pretty unforgiving scene. But it's not a death scene. She gets up, she's okay. So, and now she's gonna warn them, who some of them aren't going to take her very serious. Of
course not. No one's going to take her seriously, but...
You'd think her brother at least would be like, okay, my sister is...
But so she tells him, Ash agrees to give her a ride. We get to the destroyed bridge of seeing twisted metal and concrete with no wood. And then back to the cabin where...
The two of the characters are going to be doing a guess what card I have in my hand game. One of them is actually doing a really good job of guessing.
Cheryl.
Well, Cheryl starts to guess at a very quick rate, And then this is going to become the Evil Dead thing later on, is like her voice starts to change into that demonic voice. The classic, epic, raw, demonic, like almost like electrical voice. That's hard to describe, like what the voice sounds like. It's like a thick, demonic, electrical voice. And then Cheryl turns around and
She's a deadite.
She has been possessed
Yep.
by evil.
Yep, because of that tree.
And now I will say the movie does start out kind of slow, but now from this point forward, we're mostly going to be balls to the wall. But it's kind of a slow beginning before we got to this point.
But so Cheryl's in the air, has her little monologue, drops back down.
The classic deadite in the air floating thing.
So immediately after Cheryl drops, Scotty walks in and goes, "What happened to her?"
Even when she gets up and she's clearly possessed, Scotty's still just like, "Hey, are you okay? What's wrong with you? Hey, stop it, Cheryl." You know, Scotty's a little bit slow to get with the program.
Well, there's a lot of things Scotty says in this that I'm just thinking they really should have had a script for this movie. Cheryl attacks, gets thrown in a cellar. They're trying to decide what to do.
Again, I have to give props to Sam Raimi. There's a very cool shot of just, you're watching the characters talk about it, but you're seeing from the perspective of the demon in the cellar pretty much. You're just seeing like the demon eavesdropping on them, but it's just a funny shot because you hear them making noises too, like ah. It's like a funny shot though. A lot of cool shots there.
And then Scotty asks, "Can we take the bridge?" He's like, "Did Ash not tell you the bridge was out?
Maybe he didn't.
Or are you just that scared that you completely forgot about the bridge?"
Well, listen, Scotty's got bigger problems looming. Like his face getting scratched to shit. So
after his girlfriend becomes another demon, Shelly attacks him. Yep. As you say, gets his face scratched, which that looked painful because, her fingernails were coming off. I was like,
something about the movies back then, this especially, like they don't cut away. They show the damage. Like I was talking about earlier, the pencil in the ankle.
Right.
The pencil in the ankle, which you would think is just like not really a big deal. Something about that and the blood, the way it came out, it made me feel like it was real. And then her screaming, I felt like a damn pencil was really in her ankle. It was pretty crazy.
So before we 100% talk about Shelly's possession attack, I just want to bring up Scotty does not give two flying fucks
about anybody.
About anybody, especially Shelly. Because after Shelly gets attacked, him being the boyfriend, I don't know about you, but if that was my wife, I'd be running in there ready to fight, not slowly walking up like if it was Ash's girlfriend, if it was Linda, cool. I can understand him going in there cautious, but it's his girlfriend.
Yep.
And he doesn't have really any concern on his face. He doesn't have any real fear. He's being calculating. I'm like, do you not care? This is not how a normal person reacts to situations like this.
I think your only mistake is you're seeing these people as real human beings, but I think that clearly by this point in the movie, we figured out that these characters are just props. They're just here to serve the visuals of becoming demons, but these are not human beings with real motivations and real characteristics. Maybe Ash has personality and has a character to a degree.
The problem with it is Scotty's
we're not here for the character development.
So the problem is Scotty's supposed to be our muscle at this point. He's the one who's been doing a lot of the heavy lifting for this movie, for the fights.
I think Scotty was brought along for his ability to provide transportation to the cabin. It was his car and he was driving, and I think that's why he's there.
At this point, Scotty's been doing all the actual fights and action, whereas Ash is sniveling coward in the corner.
And even Ash is showing more friendship in terms of just caring for Scotty when Scotty's damaged. Mm-hmm. Ash is basically making him chicken soup and tending to his wounds.
Yeah. So with Shelly possessed, Scotty then dismembers Shelly, which fair. She's trying to kill you.
Well, it's on the tapes that this is how you.
Which is funny because when we heard that, Bruce was listening to it and it looked like he had headphones in.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So how did Scotty hear that?
Scotty has magical hearing abilities. It transcends headphones. I don't know.
Or
he has that ESP thing that the one girl was talking about.
Or maybe he just has or maybe Bruce told him off screen.
Yeah, there's some off-screen stuff that we could surmise was probably thrown in there. So I would say for me, the Deadites, even though this movie, I'm very surprised by having not seen a long time. I was expecting a lot more comedy, but the movie does play every scene pretty straight up. It's a straight up horror film.
She's like trying to keep herself kind of balanced on whatever it was.
There's a pole behind her on her back and a guy holding her on a pole.
Yeah, she's trying to stay balanced. It looks so corny.
I think
that's it.
But I think it looks corny for now because you've seen it so much since then. But in 1981, we can't watch this versus like another 1981 movie and not be like, oh, this is actually pretty good for the budget and what they're trying to accomplish. I would say that the only thing I would say comedic is the Deadites, the way they act. They're really not trying to kill you so much as just torment you. They're just really here. They're here to talk shit. They tell you, we're going to kill you. You have no hope. Your soul's mine. Blah, blah, blah. The Deadites are kind of funny to a point where eventually Ash is like, shut up. But it's played pretty straight up.
Well, here's a question. So usually whenever they get turned into a Deadite, they straight up attack them almost immediately. Again, as you said, not really to kill them, but to torture them.
Yeah.
Why is Linda the exception? She's the exception with a lot of things in this when she becomes possessed.
I think it's because of that necklace she has or that bracelet she has or whatever.
Well, is she not getting fully possessed or something? Because
there's just some kind of power in that necklace. I don't know what it is.
Because the reason I'm wondering is her face doesn't change immediately. She practically has the exact same face, just with the contacts in. Not to mention, she's not actively attacking Bruce. She's just sitting there laughing at him.
It's a good opportunity to mention also, side note, the contact lens the actors have to use when they become demons. It's a glass contact lens that's heavy on the eyes, cuts off the airflow to the brain, and can only be worn for 15 minutes at a time. So this example, again, of like what the actors are put through, where like, literally they're doing the scene and they'll tell like the camera, like they'll be like, shut up, like, hey, I'm getting lightheaded. We gotta get this off me pretty soon.
That just sounds uncomfortable.
But yeah, you know, the Linda mystery, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I don't think the movie does not have strong internal logic. I don't think they cared about it. They were just like, okay, these Deadites can pretty much do whatever they want because they're always in control. So it's like they're kind of always dictating what's going on.
So it makes me wonder if the Deadite that possesses Linda was either a little bit more powerful than the others or if it was more of a trickster. Because Cheryl's our main antagonist really at this point. But Linda at one point actually goes back to being herself. Which again, the other two Deadites never do.
Cheryl at one point does for a second. When Cheryl's in the basement, they both do the ploy. And this is a common Deadite thing that we'll know that always happens in the sequels too. It's like the Deadites love trying to trick the human who has a connection to them and being like turning back in their human form for a moment. At one point, Cheryl does it. Ash gets confused. He's standing there.
Yeah, it was just her voice, though.
Just her voice, pretty much. And then, you're right, Linda did a full-blown face back to human.
Yeah, and even acted like herself again. She was scared, just like...
It's all tricks. It's all trickery because Ash gets tricked every time with that, basically, at first. Later on in the sequels, he's like, nope, it's a trick. But here, it's like, it's a very smart thing for a demon to do. Be like, okay, you love me, so I'm going to go back to my original form and trick you.
Like that makes sense. Makes me wonder if Cheryl's demon or Linda's demon was more of a trickster, or was it just a little bit more powerful to be able to revert back that much?
And I'll say throughout the series, it's actually true that the Deadites all do have different personalities almost. There's different variations for sure, because some of them are more straightforward, I want to kill you, and some of them more like, I want to play with you. They are... There's not one set Deadite personality. Linda,
yeah, like we get with Linda, she's definitely, again, feels more trickster. Cheryl is the one that wants to play a little bit. She doesn't outright kill you, she just messes with you. Then you got Shelly, who's trying to just straight up kill Scotty immediately.
And there's something, too, about like certain people, like in the entire franchise with Ash specifically, they always just want to beat the shit out of him. Like they love, now this is going to be super heightened in Evil Dead 2, but they really don't want to kill him. They just like tormenting him. Whereas other people, you're right, they'll just bite them right away and like immediately turn them into a Deadite or kill them. But with Ash, they're like, we're going to just make the rest of his life miserable. For the next 40 years, it's going to be miserable.
Now, we get to pretty much Ash burying Linda because... Oh, yeah, there was one thing I want to mention. So the little sword you'd think would have more importance.
Yes.
The real question is, that sword obviously does something to them because whenever one of the Deadites got stabbed by it, they sped out.
Yep.
So the sword was important to an extent, but we never figure that out. And yet, the sword disappears every single time someone got stabbed. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I did.
Like when Shelly got stabbed and landed on her back, there was obviously nothing behind her because her back was completely against the floor. There was nothing sticking out. Same with Linda. In fact, he started dragging Linda before ever taking the sword out. Sword just completely disappeared.
Yeah, they never really get back to that. You're right.
It's like, what was the significance with that sword? What if you chopped off the heads with that sword? Could that have done something to him? Instead of just stabbing him? Because stabbing him made him puke out fucking grits.
I think that probably the significance is it's like the same way there was that knife dagger thing in Jason Goes to Hell. Mm-hmm. That you could take out Jason from a family member stabbing somebody. The sword...
I just wonder if they use it to chop off the head, could that have actually dropped them without doing the full dismemberment? Because really, dismembering them doesn't fully kill them. It just makes it where they can't use that body no more.
Well, and that sword never comes back up in the franchise again, right? So it's like...
What was the point of it?
Again, this being a standalone movie in 1981, without them thinking about the bigger world building, I don't think... They cared.
I just feel... Well, what was the point of even bringing the sword in this one? The sword didn't do anything.
Just a random sword.
Except for Grits puke.
Just random Grits puke. That's what they're there for, so...
Ash went to the cellar to get shells because guess who broke out of the cellar?
Cheryl.
Yep. And then when he comes back, Scotty's possessed.
Scotty, man. Thankless role, man. Dies early and then... Turn to a Deadite.
Yep, so we get what I just now realized was the climax, because again, this is my first time ever watching this movie.
Oh, wow.
So while Scotty is holding him by the leg, could easily get kicked by the other leg to get off him, he chooses to let Scotty keep pulling him.
Well, not only that, but then he's about to have some lower back problems because...
Cheryl comes up and
Cheryl just starts beating his lower back with a stick. Now, his focus is on... getting the book with the little chain necklace thing. Yeah, but
so, why didn't you just kick Scotty off of him?
The lower back problems. He's too busy getting hit with the stick.
He didn't have that the first time, or the first 5 minutes of this.
I think he had determined that if he destroys the book, he can destroy the evil for good.
You know how easy that would have been if he just kicked Scotty off of him?
Yeah, but that's not going to stop the woman with the stick beating his ass, right?
Well, the woman with the stick wasn't even there at the first.
Look... Sometimes you take the hard road when
I see that.
The easy road's right in front of you.
Right, so he uses his...
Hey, his plan works, though.
He uses the magnifying glass, gets the book, even though it was already on fire and slowly building on the book itself. But I guess it wasn't burning quick enough, so he throws it in the fire, and the book gets a tongue, starts squirming, trying to get out. You'd think it would somehow get one of the Deadites to come pull it out.
Well, we got some cool-ass animation here, so I'll tell you what, so...
It looked like Wallace and Gromit.
Yep. Now, is that a thing? Destroying the book destroys the Deadites?
It was in this movie.
Because I think
this is the only time it ever does it, too.
I don't see that ever come back up. The truth is you need, for the rest of the series, I think you need the spells in the book to recite those to get rid of it. Just send the book on fire. By the way, the Necronomicon, which isn't really set in this movie, the version of this movie is like a little children's book. Right. And the one, the future ones, is like a big old Necronomicon, like it's Big Brother.
Yeah.
It's like Dr. Seuss wrote this one, and then Stephen King wrote the future ones.
Well, that's probably because in the future ones, they wanted, especially with our latest one, Elden Ring came out, so they got inspiration from the creatures from Elden Ring for that movie. So they needed a bigger book to explain how that process works.
This first book is like a 10-page picture book for children.
Yes.
It's got 6 drawings. And, you know, yeah, so I don't know. But all that said,
something's still around.
Ash defeats the evil, or does he?
No, there's something still around. It goes up to him, and honestly, if this was a standalone movie, I'd be classified as Ash is dead.
Yeah, he's probably not making out of that thing alive. And even then, it's like him exiting out to his car like that. How the hell was he going to get anywhere anyway? So
what was it? Scotty said there is a trail that goes around.
Yeah, Scotty was like half dead and delusional. Right? How does Scotty's probably making that up? So.
Which is kind of funny how he found the trail when he was only gone for, what, 5 minutes?
Yeah.
He went out to the woods, got attacked, came back.
Suddenly Sky's the local park ranger with like the maps built into his brain. Like, oh, there's a trail right around there.
Well, he was possessed. Maybe the possessed demon just decided to mess with him. It's like, yeah, there's a trail. Yeah. Go out and try and get it to yourself.
I got a feeling that Ash is going to walk around and keep walking back to the cabin over and over again for the rest of eternity.
Right.
You know, the movie's pretty short, hour and a half. I think the first 15, 20 minutes are kind of slow. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of gets going. So the best acting has to be somebody who was one of the demons, because
I give it to Cheryl.
Yeah, I think Cheryl, human version, is relatable and likable, and you kind of follow her character. And then demon version, great job.
Actually, you know what? Even though I kind of harped on it,
Linda's not bad either.
That's who I'm about to say, Linda, because she had to. Because at one scene she was going back and forth between demon, herself, then she went back to the demon. She did a pretty good job. She was probably the creepiest besides Cheryl.
Yeah.
Especially since she was sitting there laughing, saying, "We're gonna get you."
Yeah, and I think in the sequels, like, for example, part 2, like, maybe it'll be different and we'll actually give it to Ash, but I don't think Ash was well defined as of yet here. But he wasn't yet a badass.
He was a sniffling coward in this one.
Sniffling coward, and like I said, the actors and actresses who had to play the Deadites, they did a lot with their facial expressions. There's a lot of acting their asses off, to be honest.
Not to mention the hardships they had to go through.
And that's why it's so hard to say worst performance.
Oh, no, I got a worse performance.
It's going to be Scotty, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean...
No facial expressions for anything.
Yeah.
Even as a Deadite, he really had no facial expressions.
Okay, final thoughts. Watching this for the first time in a long time... like I said, I think I watched it one time after Pakistan while I was still a kid, but as an adult, really never revisited this until now. I was shocked that it's more of a straightforward horror film. Like, you would think when you say Evil Dead and you sit down and watch Evil Dead movie, for the most part, you're expecting kind of almost like comedy, cheesiness. There's cheesiness in the effects for sure and how the demons act, but it's a pretty decent, straightforward horror film. That said, I do actually like comedy in my Evil Dead films, but for 1981, I think the effects are pretty fantastic, and there's a lot of cool camera shots. There's a lot of sound effects that are actually cool too when I think about it. Like, just even the sound effect of when the demon's driving through the woods, that's the weird wind effect, sound effect. So there's a lot of cool things, little things in there. But I will say this is not really my favorite of the franchise, because I do like more comedy and action in my Evil Dead movies. I'm like on that side, whereas I know some people are more just, they want the straightforward Evil Dead. I'm more impressed with just the making of the movie, like just the story behind it, them getting the money together, first, like all unknown, first time, only time actors in a cabin in Tennessee actually pulling this off, I think is really impressive. So I'm more impressed with that almost. But the movie itself, I'm gonna go like 2.5 stars. I do like some of the sequels a lot more, even though I recognize that this being the original kind of puts into like classic film territory. But for me, it's like the original Friday the 13th, where I recognize it's the first one, so it's kind of the classic, but I think the sequels are better. So I'm gonna go 2.5 stars. Certainly it's a fun movie to watch, straightforward horror film, but not my favorite of the series. I'm gonna settle on 2.5 stars with it.
For me, this is kind of a hard one, as I said, because this is actually my very first time watching this particular Evil Dead movie.
And that's tough, because horror movies are strange, because sometimes some of them grow on you the more you watch it,
right? Or
some of them, like Valentine, grow off of you the more you watch it.
Well, with this one, honestly, I don't think I need to watch it more than once for it to grow on me, because I really like this movie. I enjoyed it, but then again, I prefer the more straightforward horror.
So that's
more
the Parks.
Yeah. So overall, there was a few things that I felt like could have definitely been a little better. Like, you could have used a few more shots in the woods. Maybe have one of the scenes with the Deadites in the woods, because they could have used the trees to be helping them beat the shit out of Ash. Probably would have been more comedy there, though.
Well, I'll be interested in your reaction to Evil Dead 2, because Evil Dead 2 basically is what they wanted to do with if they had the budget.
Okay.
So given the budget, they do a lot of the same shots, but more refined with better effects. But they also lean more into the comedy also.
Though also, I will say one more thing. You mentioned that you like the whole establishing shots with the whooshing wind when the thing's moving. For me, it just felt like Goosebumps.
Yeah, but this is way before Goosebumps. So.
It still felt like Goosebumps to me. But again, this is my first time watching it. As for the acting, it's fine for a bunch of first-time actors. I can't really blame anything on this movie because of the budget.
These guys were all troopers. Mm-hmm. You think about what the acting directing is putting them through. They're all troopers. They all have my respect for sure.
And I definitely have to give the shout out to the effects of this movie. With that kind of a budget, the effects were amazing. Were pretty amazing for that time frame. Well,
Sam Raimi, I mean, the dude would go on to make like a lot of classic stuff. I mean, you think about the Spider-Man movies are all really good movies. Mm-hmm. So even though like you give him even a low budget, you can tell like he's going to be like a big special effects guy in the future once he has the money to do it.
Oh yeah. So overall, honestly, I say you were fair when you said 2.5 because I'm going to give it that as well. Just because I kind of wish he would have been able to get a bigger budget for this movie, but considering everything going on and considering the budget, I do feel 2.5 is fair.
Yeah, I think they are effects wise, they're maximizing what they can do with the resources they have. Mm-hmm. Anyways, let us know in the comments what you think about the first Evil Dead. This whole month we'll be doing Evil Dead. Next week we have Evil Dead 2 for fans of the new one. In a few weeks we will definitely be doing Evil Dead Rises, so look for that.
I'm not sure if McDonald's still has spicy chicken nuggets, but if they do when this comes out, by all means, get some spicy chicken nuggets because you never know when they're going to take them away again.
Are those good?
I like them.
How spicy are they? As someone who doesn't
It's cayenne pepper mixed with their normal tempura sauce or tempura batter.
So, okay, compared to Wendy's spicy nuggets, spicier?
Spicier.
Wow. I can't do it then.
No, you can't.
Acid reflux.
You couldn't do it even if it was normal spice. You have to deal with mild curry, my guy.
All right, well, listen, if you become a Deadite, then go to McDonald's, get the spicy nuggets, because in your Deadite state, you can definitely have the spice.
With buffalo sauce, I might add.
Ranch.
Buffalo.
Honey mustard.
Buffalo.
Barbecue sauce.
Hot mustard.
Sweet and sour.
Buffalo.
No buffalo.
Buffalo. And if you find Gargoyles, the complete collection, mail it to me.